Well, alrighty then. Before I get right into the video, I want to take 15, 20 seconds, and I just want to thank all of those that have subscribed recently to the Old Dog channel. The last few months seen a big uptick in subscriptions, so I just want to let you know that you're appreciated, along with those that have been with me for a while. So thank you again. All right, so this video is are expats having a negative impact on the Philippines? Everything from the price of rice to the price of rent going up, the congestion, the traffic, and just the society in general. I think if you hang in there with me, I'm going to go over some of those, and you might find that my opinion and some of the statistics you agree with and already understand, and there's a really good chance that some of it may be new information to you and take you a little bit by surprise. All right, so here comes my little video. All right, well, the inspiration to do this little video was simple. I've had it in the back of my mind for a couple, 3 weeks, primarily because, unfortunately for me, I'm on Facebook. And that's got to end one of these days because Facebook, to me, is fairly useless. I really like Messenger, but I don't like Facebook, to be honest with you. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. On Facebook, I'm also in these expat groups and forums. And for the life of me, I can't remember asking to join one of them, but I'm in like 4 or 5. And in those groups, I pretty much ignore it because some poor soul will ask a very innocent question, and then all these guys will jump in with their snarkiness and their sarcasm and their nonsense and end up belittling the guy for just asking a simple question. And so that's just the way it is, I suppose. Too many guys over here with nothing to do and all day to do it except complain. But recently there's been a couple of posts in those groups that I did sit up and pay attention to because it's kind of on my radar. About renting. I've had friends that are asking about apartments, and I'm curious about apartments, blah, blah, blah. And one guy said, you know, why are the prices of apartments going up so much? And there's 187 comments within 8 minutes, and the majority of them say, well, because all the expats are moving here and driving up the prices because they don't know how to negotiate, or they just pay through the nose, or they've got too much money, blah, 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 blah. Well, that may be partially true, but I don't buy it. And to put a cherry on the top of this, this is really what pushed me over the edge to make this video. I was sitting on February 2nd, the day before my birthday this month. My wife wanted to go to Hypermart before they closed, which they're closing for a renovation. They're not closing forever. That's a little sidebar. Anyway, I hate shopping. I make no bones about it. I especially hate shopping for clothes where you got to go in a little dressing room and change, find out it doesn't fit, take it off, put all your clothes back on, walk out, repeat 4 times till you finally find something that works. But I digress. I hate shopping. My wife wanted to go in and pick up some things so we could celebrate my birthday. And so she got like a cake and a gizmo and a gadget and some balloons and all that jazz. Why am I telling you that? Because while she was shopping, and I just told you I hate to shop, I just have this habit now. I just hand her the wallet. I said, go get what the hell you need and pay for it. And then I'll be waiting over there on that bench. And that's exactly what I was doing. On February 2nd, I was sitting on the bench in a Hypermart, and I was minding my own business. Let me repeat that real quick. I was minding my own business. Had my hands folded, sitting in my lap. I was just observing people as they checked out. I was fairly bored. I was trying to let my mind wander onto something that would interest me. And out of nowhere comes this big burly Australian dude and doesn't say hi, doesn't say how are you. He just points his big fat finger at me and in his Australian accent said, you know, you're the reason that this town's all screwed up. I said, is that a fact? And he said, yeah. He said, you know, guys like you got those YouTube channels, and now all these guys are moving here, and they're driving up, you guys are driving up the prices, and then blah, 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 and then the Australian accent kicked in, along with the Australian slang words. And from that point forward, I think I understood about 8% of the balance of the conversation, just because of the accent and the slang words. And he had his girlfriend or a wife or whoever she was with him. And I was sitting down and he was standing up and she was standing next to him. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and it was almost as if she was trying to send me this mental message of, I'm sorry. I could feel and I could see her eyes starting, and the more this guy talked, I could see her eyes glazing over at about the same rate that mine were, because neither one of us were interested in his opinion or what he had to say. And he was saying, you know, I moved here in 2010, and there was no traffic, and there was no foreigners, and life was better, and blah, 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 and that went on for what seemed like an eternity. It was probably 7 or 8 minutes, because he was a solid 100 pounds overweight, and he was standing up, and I was sitting down, advantage Paul. And finally, he just got tired of listening to himself talk, I guess, and he said, well, we got to get out of here. And I said, okay, well, you know, I take full responsibility for all of your misery. Sorry that I did that. Have a nice day. Kiss my ass under my breath. And off he went. And I got to thinking about, between the snarky comments that are on this goofy expat pages and his, you know, unrequested opinion of me and everything else that's going on in his little world. Is that really true? Are expats coming here in droves, and are we screwing things up for everybody? And I got a short answer for you that want to cut out right now. No, we're not. And I started to research it. And once again, I actually wrote some notes down, because liars figure and figures never lie. So I checked out some numbers. And I went to good old Google, you know, where the man buns wearing their skinny jeans put all this information into the computer for us. And I went to Wikipedia, and I was checking things out. And here's a couple of little stats, or figures, as I like to say, that I pulled off the World Wide Web. The total population of the Philippines as of 2024 is 118,395,593 people, with an average age of 25 years. 25-year-olds are the median age out here in the Philippines. I asked how many Americans are in the Philippines. Americans, not foreigners, just Americans. Me, so you can blame me. 600,000. And that's throughout the Philippines. I asked, where are most foreigners living? And the number one answer was Makati in Manila, because it's a business hub and there's a lot of people over there. It's more metropolitan. They're working, they're doing this, they're doing that. I said, well, out of the 600,000 Americans like me that are living out here, what percentage of the population do we make in the Philippines? The answer, you can verify this, 0.56%. 0.56% are guys like me out here in all of the 7,000 plus islands in the Philippines, and most of them are in Makati. Um, Dumaguete, sleepy little Dumaguete. How many people live out here? Population, Dumaguete, approximately 120,000 people. Population of foreigners living out here, all foreigners, not just me, not just Americans, all foreigners. Australians, Canadians, Chinese, Koreans, you name it. 4,500, which is 3.75%. And I have had guys come up to me and say, man, there's sure a lot of foreigners coming here. Well, what's interesting is he mentioned 2010, how much better it was. And I got to thinking two things. You know what? Back in 2017, when I first moved here, I saw a lot more foreigners then than I do here in 2024. I would go to Robinson's and People Watch when I first got here, and I would see one guy after another walking by with some little chippy on his arm and just kind of enjoy that scenery and the dynamics. And I'd always say, I wonder how he met her. And I don't see that very much anymore. And so we're talking about a number of things here, or I am. We're talking about, are there a lot of us here? I don't think the stats bear that out. I think that having 3.75% of the population being guys like me is a pretty insignificant number. I will not confess, but I will state that the majority of foreigners, Canadians, Americans, Australians, etc., do congregate in certain areas. And it may look like there's a ton of guys there. Rizal Boulevard here in Dumaguete is very popular. It has coffee shops. It has restaurants. Most of the foreigners that see a YouTube video or whatnot are familiar with it and want to see it. There are other places where, and birds of a feather flock together. I know of one beach bar that's really a nice place, and I love the owner, super nice guy, but almost 100% of his customers are Australians. And the only reason I don't go out there is I can't understand what everybody's talking about. Remember the guy at Hypermart? Especially when they've had a couple of cold ones and they start using slang. And God forbid there's a ball game on, go rabbit hose. But that being said, go to a coffee shop, you'll see a bunch of guys looking just like me, and they're drinking and lying to one another and telling stories and helping out. There's Ground Zero, there's Bo's, there's Tom Toms. They're all right there in that same little quadrant. And then there's a bunch of restaurants that guys like to go to. And I thought, well, are we the cause for all of the prices going up? That seems to be the complaint, right? Remember the forum? Well, no, we're not. And I'll tell you, maybe a little bit, but that's because if we want Western standards, if we want a proper house or a proper apartment, and when I say proper, I mean with air conditioning in each room and a proper stove and cooktop and a patio and this and a bop and a carport, well, you're going to have to pay for it. Same thing you're going to have to pay for wherever you're living right now. You want a little apartment with, one window air conditioner or just a fan? Well, you're going to get what you pay for. Same thing out here. Why does stuff cost so much more now than it did when I was here in 2017? I have an answer. It's called inflation. It's happening worldwide. My wife sees it. The price of food is for everybody. It's not just rent. Food, gas, you name it. It just costs a lot more. Beer, cigarettes, they're more money. That's just the way the world is operating. So are foreigners ruining it? No. And there's not that many that are actually migrating here, in my humble opinion. as there were back in the day. One thing that thinned out the foreigner population that hasn't been replaced yet was the pandemic. You could leave the Philippines back then, but you couldn't come back in. Philippines was the last to open. They were first to welcome you to leave and the last to let you return. So a lot of dudes took their women or themselves or both and went back to their home country. That was that. Some came back, a lot didn't. They just stayed where they were. They couldn't get in. I talked to so many guys that said, I planned to come there this year, that year, but because of the pandemic, I had to change my plans. I went somewhere else. I ended up liking it, and now I'm here for a visit. There's been a big uptick in tourism. Of the last 6 people that I've met, I don't think I'd be lying to you if I told you that 4 of the 6 were here for a couple of weeks or for a month or for 2 months. They were either just on vacation, they had no intention of living here, or they were on an exploratory mission. The last guy I had a conversation with was 37 years old, disabled veteran, God bless him, served Afghanistan and all of that. He came out here on just such a mission, was wandering around for a week or 2, had to get back home because he had to do more tests for the VA on his disability, and couldn't reschedule those, so he had to cut his trip short. But he came out, spent some money, and then went back home. So do I think guys like me are ruining it, or guys like you that may be like me, older American, older Canadian, older German, whatever, just older people, or just flat out foreigners? No, I don't think we're driving the prices up. I think we're helping the economy, especially in the tourist part. Coming in, buying our knickknacks, staying at resorts, eating at the restaurants that are owned by Filipinos. Now, there's a big plethora of automobiles. That was one of the biggest changes that I've seen since 2017. When I came out here, scooters ruled the road. And then about 2 years in, about 2019, I started to see car after car after car after car after car. And I thought incorrectly, wow, it's all these foreigners out here buying cars because they're so rich, right? No. I guarantee you, if you come out here, I'll bet you $100. You come out here and you go out on the street and you watch 10 cars go by, I'll bet you'd be hard-pressed to see a foreigner driving one. What they did was they made financing very easy out here for the locals. A lot of locals, a lot of Filipinos are buying their first car. You can tell by the way they drive it. It's their first car. They are packing the roads. But we've got 4,500 guys like me here in Dumaguete. Granted, I own a car, but I would say that maybe half of that own cars, and you've got 120,000 Filipinos. Much bigger percentage of cars are being owned, jamming up the roadways by the locals, not the foreigners. What's my point? My point is that there's a misconception that us coming out here is having some sort of negative impact on the society. And for my friendly Australian guy that thought he had it so good back in 2010. Well, guess what? When I lived in America back in 2010, I liked America a lot better back in 2010 than I do now. Things were a lot better for me in 2010 than they were in today's environment. So that's just the way the world migrates and works. If you're planning to come out here, yes, it is more expensive. My budget went from forever. My budget was $1,500 a month, and now it's closer to $2,000. That's 33% higher than it was before. Well, that's because I didn't move. My rent didn't go up. So I can't blame that. I own a car, so maybe you contribute $100 a month to gasoline that I wasn't spending before. But primarily, it's just stuff. Anything from a shirt to a chicken to rice. May notice that at Krispy Kreme, a packet of rice went up from 10 pesos to 12 pesos. Doesn't sound like a lot, but percentage-wise, that's a pretty good bump. Cost of food is going up. What have I done? I think where I think the misconception comes from, especially with Dumaguete, that there's a zillion guys out here, is there's one catalyst that I've recognized. It seems like everybody and their mother has a YouTube channel. I think the per capita YouTuber in Dumaguete outreaches any other place on the planet. And I don't know what caused it. Because when I first came out here and I started my little channel, there was 3 or 4 or 5 of us that were bouncing around talking about whatever goofy stuff we talk about, like right now. And now it seems like there's hundreds. Maybe that's an exaggeration. But not only does the guy do it, but his significant other, wife or girlfriend has a channel also. I'm guilty of that. A year into my YouTube, my wife decided she's going to start her little channel. And so I'm not saying I'm the cause of that, but I'm saying that just seems to be the trend. So I think when you turn on your YouTube and you check out Dumaguete and you see that there's 42 people online all talking about their age gap relationship or their monthly budget, you're going to go, good Lord, how many people are out there in little Dumaguete? Well, let's give Dumaguete a break. Most people live, as the stats show, in Makati. They live in Metro Manila. And Americans aren't even the number one. It's the Chinese and the Koreans and then the Americans. Rest are the Canadians, very small amount. Australians go down. And so there's your influx of people. I have gone to, I want to finish with this. I've challenged people that have come up to me and said, boy, there's too many expats there in Dumaguete, or too many expats here in the Philippines. I've said, really? Well, remember Hypermart where I was at, where I met my friendly Australian guy? I wanted to say it to him, but didn't. But I'll say it to you. If you're ever in Robinson's Mall or Hypermart or any big department store, just look around and tell me how many white faces you see or black faces that you see that look like they're foreigners. And then how many brown faces you see, like my wife's, that are locals. I guarantee you that there's going to be 94% Filipinos. You'd be hard-pressed to find 5% foreigners here. So don't believe the lie. If you still think this might be a destination for you, don't think you're getting pushed out. I think the rents and all that are going up simply due to economics 101, supply and demand. They're not making any more land. But if they start to build more apartments and if they start to build more units, you'll see, just like you would see anywhere else, the price would go down. That's what commands the market, kids. Supply and demand, not the color of your skin. All right, I'll see you in the next video.